Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Pipe Wrench, and by Junk Be Gone, and by the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Sports Source in the Junk Be Gone studios. Happy to have you with us. Appreciate you making this show possible by watching every week, year-round, and by visiting our sponsors year-round. Much appreciated. We have a lot to cover today. We've got Rick Barnes and Jonas Aidoo. We've got the possible #1 pick in the NFL draft next year right on UT's campus. We've got people talking about Memphis getting on the schedule for Tennessee. Should it be? SEC expansion to talk about, a little bit about the spring sports, baseball and softball. A lot to cover today. Let's get right into it. Our first segment brought to you by the Garza Law Firm. And when you need an attorney, you got to go with the best. When you need an attorney, you got to go with a group that's local, right here in East Tennessee, with offices in Knoxville and the surrounding area. And when you need an attorney, you need to go with the Garza Law Firm, because they're both of those. The best, and right here in East Tennessee. More than 2 decades of proven results right here. Marcos Garza and his team, big part of this community, and you can just check around. I'm sure you'll find somebody you know who's been represented by Marcos Garza and his team at some point or another, and I bet you have a real good story that you're going to hear from them, because these guys do tremendous, tremendous work. These guys and gals, I suppose. Not guys applied to everyone, but if I don't say guys and gals, I will get an email. Garzalaw.com to learn more. All right, let's welcome in the rest of our panel today, or the entire panel today. Jimmy Himes right here, Ryan Callahan right there, Josh Ward, Bob Hodge. Or I guess the rest of the panel, because I'm part of the panel. There you go. I want to start by talking about, well, basically, this is kind of funny. We're going to talk a little bit about the state of college sports a little bit later, and is the NCAA finally going to make some changes that might fix things? But in the current landscape of college sports, it's early May, so of course Rick Barnes is still building his basketball team. That is a change. It wasn't used to that years ago. Let's take a look at some of the movements that have taken place just recently. We've talked about it for several weeks. Finally came to fruition this past week. Igor Milicic transferred into Tennessee from Charlotte. That's the third transfer in for the program, joining Felix Akpara from Ohio State and Darlinston Dubar from Hofstra. Man, it's going to be the all-name team. Milicic, Akpara, and Dubar. And then outgoing, you finally got some results there too. Tobe Awaka, he transfers to Arizona, makes that official. And Jonas Aidoo, last Sunday I said, well, it's looking more like North Carolina or Alabama rather than Arkansas. So, of course, he then goes to Arkansas. So things change from Saturday to Sunday. But Jonas Aidoo transfers to Arkansas, where he'll play for John Calipari. In terms of what Rick Barnes said about Jonas Aidoo, let's show you what that was. Honestly, I don't want to sound crass about it, but you move on. When you lose somebody, your mindset has to be, well, maybe we can improve somewhere. We obviously have great love and respect for Jonas. We've watched him grow in our program. But again, he felt like he may want to play a different style, a different way. But it hurts. It always does when you feel like you've really worked hard with a young person and you get them to a point, but you also understand it. Believe me, we understand it. I've said this before, I'm amazed that Rick Barnes is learning a new trick in terms of just turning over a new leaf with this transfer thing. He's adjusted better than just about anybody in the country for coaches who've been around for a long time. And even when you can tell he's upset, a comment like that, he didn't like being surprised by the departure, even then he handles it with class, which there are a lot of coaches who would have blown the kid up for that. So kudos to Rick Barnes. But my question is this: how does Jonas Aidoo get treated if Arkansas and John Calipari arrive in Knoxville this year? How does he get treated? I think I know the answer to that. That's the easy part. He'll get his brains booed out, correct?
Not well.
Yeah, not well. He'll be booed.
Yeah.
All right, here's the real question. If he just left for money, if it was just NIL, okay, even though everybody does it, and nobody boos the guys that transfer here just for NIL, okay, I would understand that. But we talked about it a couple weeks ago on the show. This is a guy who thinks he can get to the NBA playing a different style of basketball. Rick Barnes just laid it out there. So should people boo him? If this is someone who literally is making a business decision, this isn't just cash. This is, in this system, I'm not going to be as prepared for the NBA as I will be in that system. I've got to go make this move. So should they boo him? We know they will, and I don't care about the school. I'm just saying, should wherever he's transferring from, boo him if he's transferring with a reason? Jimmy?
No, they shouldn't boo him. They will, but they shouldn't. I'll be curious to see who they boo louder. Either it'll be Calipari or Haydu. I don't know which one to get the most jeers, but I don't think they should. I'm not a big fan of booing athletes anyway. Yeah. But on top of that, you have benefited tremendously at Tennessee from transfers, football and basketball and baseball and softball if you want to keep going down the list. So why would you take out aspersions against somebody that wants to go somewhere else and try to better himself, try to get ready for the NBA? And by the way, I'm told he's making $1.2 million in NIL money, which isn't bad.
Hurt, yeah.
But no, I don't think he should be booed, and I don't blame him for making what he considers a business decision to prepare him for the next level. So it'll happen, but I don't think it should.
1.2 million. Josh, I was going to start with you. I didn't. I went to Jimmy. I'm sorry. I was looking in that direction. So I'll start with you for the rest of the segment. Your thoughts on this? What should have happened?
I'm going to need more NIL for the rest of the show.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
If I'm going to have to follow Jimmy.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. I expect that he'll be booed when he's introduced. I think that he should be cheered at the beginning because he helped Tennessee win. Move aside why he's leaving. He helped Tennessee win a championship. They got to the Elite Eight, and I think he helped there. I know he didn't have a great NCAA tournament, but they were positioned to go there because of how he did. He was an All-SEC player. Once the game gets going, I think that's a different conversation because fans can have an impact on the game. And if you want to give him the business at that point, I think that can make some sense. But yeah, but going in, I think he should be cheered, and it goes both ways. You're bringing players in, you're seeing players go out, and I think Rick Barnes truly means it when he says he understands that. Yeah. He has recognized that's the new college basketball world.
Boo him. I mean, that is what fandom is. And fandom is not about understanding the other. Say that Josh Heupel decides to start running the wishbone. And Nico goes, I'm not going to get to the NFL running the wishbone, and he transferred. Everybody would go, oh, I know how come he's transferring. Then when he came back with Alabama, he would be booed. I mean, I see what you all are saying, that yes, there's a logical reason he did it. He did it to help himself and further his basketball career. But as a fan, you abandoned me, I'm going to boo you. I mean, it's just,
Even if for Nico, if they ran to the wishbone, it would be his fault for leaving.
No, that's what I'm saying. It wouldn't be his fault. But as a fan, you've gone to the other side. And there's one good side.
Yeah. And all the others are
the others are the dark side. So that's just the way it is.
Voice of the fan. What do you think?
I mean, to the point that we should critique fan behavior at all.
Well,
no,
that's not really
right.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, yeah. But I don't think I don't think that deserves to be booed because again, he does have a legitimate reason for leaving, at least in his mind. And again, who are we to question that? It's his decision, his future, and that's what he's ultimately got to decide what he wants to do and what gives him the best opportunity. But yeah, I don't think that's the worst reason for a player to leave. But I don't think that's necessarily, to Bob's point, the reason fans boo or not. I mean, Henry To'oTo'o may have had legitimate reasons for leaving for Alabama, but nobody cared at the end of the day. He was going to Alabama. So
I think if you sit there and look at his reasoning, I think it's probably very, very sound. Yeah. If his goal is the NBA, the style he was playing. But I just don't think as a fan that enters into your way of thinking.
Yeah, and the problem is this becomes a critique of fans, which is not the idea. I guess better question would be, do you have a bigger problem with it? To me, if he'd said, hey, somebody's asking me money, it's business, buddy. Money, gone. And yes, money played a role, obviously. But that's not what the response was. We've heard players basically say that. It's business, sorry. Gerald Mincy. But this is someone who's saying, look, this isn't going to get me to the NBA. I have to move style. So to me, that gives it a little bit more credibility in the reason for moving. I still hate all this stuff. I still like it. Oh, you signed with a school? Well, you're there 4 years. But that is obviously old man. That's old timer thinking. I hit Chuck with that the other day. He's not here. That's me with old timer thinking.
I used to argue about, kids should be allowed to transfer. Coaches can leave under contract. Yeah. But when I said that, I never thought we would be where we are now.
Everybody can transfer every year.
Everybody can transfer. I mean, who knows? Jonas Adu may not be playing for Arkansas this time.
1.2 million.
Go ahead. I was going to say, and to your point earlier, I actually think most fans would probably view it worse if he was leaving just for NIL. I think some fans see that as a cheaper move. Like, well, why couldn't Tennessee have done that? I mean, we're Tennessee. We've got resources too. They would just say you shouldn't leave for that. If you're leaving to prove yourself as an NBA player, I think they see that as a more legitimate reason in some ways.
I don't think people booed DJ Burns and he transferred to NC State. I think a lot of it is where did you go?
Yes, I think that's right. And the fact that if it were just Arkansas, that would be one thing. But now it's Arkansas and Calipari, too.
The Cal factor adds to it. I do think the system is going to be viewed in different ways. Like, oh, our system's not good enough for you. I think, like when Brandon Huntley Hatfield left, part of that was, oh, he wants to expand his game offensively, wants to be more of an outside shooter. Oh, you don't trust Rick Barnes coaching? So I think some will look at that part of it as an insult to Tennessee. Our system, what Rick Barnes does to develop players, isn't good enough for you. I think they'll view that as an insult and a knock on the program. Which
is funny, because how did they view Victor Bailey coming from Oregon? Because I know people are like, well, if you say Dalton Connect or Gainey, they're going to go, well, they were coming up in the world. That's what it's supposed to be. All right, what about Victor Bailey? What about Justin Powell coming from Auburn?
Yeah. Well, that was okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I can already do the movie title for you. There will be booze.
There will be booze, and with an S. All right.
And the thing about Tennessee developed him to the point where he has become a better player, much better
supposedly
player.
He's worth $1.2 million.
Yeah,
he wasn't worth $1.2 million 2 years ago.
That's exactly right.
$1.2 million seems that seems
insane.
It does.
That seems very, very large. No, I'm not casting.
It was a source.
Yeah. But 1.2, wow. Although here's the thing, part of that also is they had a massive need, because when Calipari worked in there, they had what, one walk on.
Yeah, when he was hired, they said we've put together a huge bag to divvy up.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny, and the numbers that you hear about basketball players transferring, all of them are hard for me to believe. Because, you're hearing everything, $500,000, $750,000, $1.2 million. All that is just, to me, incredible.
But one player in basketball, as we saw with Dalton Connect, can change a program. That's why it's a little different from football in a lot of cases.
Well, and you also see Arkansas is probably one of those programs like Kentucky that values basketball anywhere close to football and would be willing to do something like that. All right, when we come back, a lot of outlets believe UT will have the #1 pick in the NFL draft next year. But is James Pierce really to that level? We'll discuss that next. Coming back on the Sports Source. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. Man, they've got all kinds of materials that are cutting edge, helping you build your project, not just for today and tomorrow, but make sure that thing stands forever. The test of time. Drive it. Nudura, cultured stone. They've been around for 100 years, but that doesn't mean they are in any way resting on their laurels. The Hines family won't abide by that. They do great work, and they will help you create the do-it-yourself project that you've dreamed of. All you need to do is get down to A.G. Hines Company in downtown Knoxville to start your project. You see the website right there. Visit them today. All right. At least 5 different media outlets. I think it's 6, but we had 5 that I threw down here. Action Network, Athlon Sports, Bleacher Reports, Pro Football Focus. They're huge on this guy. And 24/7 Sports, your brand. They all rank James Pierce as the #1 pick in next year's NFL draft. Wow. Edge rusher. Everybody wants an edge rusher. There's no question. He's put up some great stats. Here's what Josh Heupel said when he was asked about it this week at the Big Orange Caravan in Chattanooga, I believe. What's being said has no chance to be the reality of where you want to be and what you want to have happen if you don't work and compete the right way and you don't invest every single day the right way. He had another comment at another stop this week that sounded somewhat similar. Both the comments made it sound like, yes, it's a great honor, it's a great opportunity. You got a long way to go, kid. You better keep focused, do the right thing. You may want to read into that there may be a, why do you say that? Perhaps there's a concern of you not being serious and letting it go to your head. But at any rate, my question is, and I'll start with Bob. We talked about this with Tyler and Will on the radio a little bit on Monday. Is he, and I'm not going to say #1 pick because anything can happen. I think a quarterback's always going to be the #1 pick in this day and age. But is he as good as a top 5 pick in your mind?
In my mind, no. And the reason is I go back and compare him to a very recent former Vol who was a first-round draft pick, Derek Barnett. I have not seen anything from James Pierce that makes me think he's as good right now as Derek Barnett was when he got drafted. I think it was 13th by the Philadelphia Eagles. And you watch Derek Barnett, and you could tell he had some special skills. I mean, his quickness, the way he could lean and get low and get around tackles. So far, and we use the phrase, I think that Pierce looks like a one-trick pony to me. He's a speed guy. And when he gets stopped at his first move, he's stopped. Now, the NFL also is looking at him as being a player that can be an outside linebacker. He could drop into pass coverage and not just simply an edge rusher. But right now, no, I would say I would not take him in the top 5 picks.
So he's still got work to do to be a top 5 pick. All these people saying he's a number 1 pick. Ryan, what are your thoughts? Is he to that level, or is some of this, the hype's taken off a little bit?
I think he is to that level because the NFL is looking at potential.
Yeah.
They're not looking at polish necessarily. And I think, yes, he's still a raw talent in some ways. But
You're telling this to me, the New England Patriot fan who just drafted Joe Milton?
Exactly.
I know all about it.
But it's hard to turn down a guy that's 6'5", 242 pounds or whatever he is now, and has the kind of length and speed off the edge that he has. So I think he is a big time talent. He's got to harness it all and continue to develop. And Rodney Garner's a good coach to get him there this year. But the message there, obviously from Josh Heupel, keep working because you're not there yet. You've got to continue to keep your head on straight and do the right things on and off the field. But I think he has that kind of skill set. And to your point about Derek Barnett, I actually think he has more raw ability than Derek Barnett because he has that untapped potential still.
Yeah,
It's just hard to find guys with that kind of speed and length.
I think he's a better athlete
Yeah.
than Derek Barnett. I also wonder how much did that 52-yard pick six against Iowa help his cause?
Yep.
Did show more versatility from him. When you look at the number 1 pick, the guy I looked at wasn't so much Derek Barnett, it's Myles Garrett. Do I think he's as good as Myles Garrett, who was the number 1 pick, who played at A&M? The answer to that is no. I don't think he's as good as he is. I do see Pierce as a top 5 pick. I don't see him as a number 1 pick. But again, that pick six against Iowa, I think, showed some athletic ability that the NFL is going to like.
Yeah, number 1 is difficult for what you said. Just if there's a quarterback that is good enough to go number 1, or a team is desperate enough needing help with that position,
Right, yeah.
they'll go that way. When you turn to top 5, I think James Pierce has a really good chance to be there. This past draft, it was very offensive heavy. Do we see a shift back to, okay, some teams need some defense help after some offensive tackles went? So Mikael Williams at Georgia is getting some talk there. He may be more polished all around. If Pierce can show more as a run defender, if he can show more moves as a pass rusher, he made a huge jump from his freshman season to his sophomore year. If he
we're
makes
talking
another
right now.
jump,
If we're projecting another jump, then I would
Yeah.
say sure he can be. But based on what I saw last year, I'm with Bob. We're the old guys in the in the balcony
In the
for
balcony.
the Muppet Show. Yeah.
Well,
but I agree with Bob that after what I saw last year, I thought he was good. Thought he was real good. But I'm like, okay, he's a great speed rusher. What else you got? Show me. Great interception return. I want to see more. I don't see him coming out and being, if we're saying he's going to be this and he's going to be that this year, okay, but that's still a projection.
Right, but part of it is I think we have to project if he's gotten better, he'll continue to do so. Like Carson Beck right now, I can't say he looks like a number 1 pick at quarterback, but a year from now, with another season in college playing, I think he could become that. So athletic traits and comparing to everybody else who still have to play another season of college football, Pierce is up there, I think, with the best in the country from an athletic standpoint.
Well, see, and here's what I come back to, though. You look, his stats tailed off as the season went. He was spectacular early, and then, I mean, he did have the big interception return in the bowl game. But his stats, and I think it was because guys figured him out. Now, for all of his athletic ability and everything, which he has, and I'm not in any way saying he's not a great football player. I just don't see him right now as being in that top 5-ish, top 10-ish. I think right now, if he went about where Derek Barnett went, okay, that's fine. But I think as the season went on, the better offensive lines figured him out.
That would be the highest Vol draft pick since who? Who was the last top 5 Vol pick?
Eric Berry?
Berry?
Yeah.
Was he top 5?
He was 5th.
He was
I
5th.
was
Darnell
thinking
Wright was number
seventh.
10.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say
fifth,
Tom
okay.
Bullwinkle.
Now, I would actually argue he's not a one-trick pony. You remember the Texas A&M game? He pushed the right tackle back into Max Johnson for a sack. So, I mean, he's shown power to me in addition to the speed.
And that's where the NFL goes wrong. They see that highlight, they go, that's it. They don't see the other plays where the offensive tackle put his hands on him and it's game.
But his pressure rate, though, was, 3rd in the country, I think, and according to Pro Football Focus. So, I mean, he had some really good
I'm
analytics.
going to be setting up a betting booth outside.
All right. When we come back,
Chuck will be there.
when we come, it's already out there. He beat you to it. When we come back, UT has sold out its season ticket allotment for the 2nd straight year. This is the healthiest UT football has been since. We'll debate that next. Coming back on the Sports Source. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Parkside Cabin Rentals. Millions of people The world over turn to TripAdvisor to help them make their decisions about where to go, where to stay when it's vacation time. Well, guess what? Guess who's a 2024 Traveler's Choice Award winner? Same as 2023. Yep, Parkside Cabin Rentals. Find out why travelers the world over love Parkside Cabin Rentals. Visit parksidecabinrentals.com today. Book a stay. Man, you could pick the cabin of your dreams. All the amenities you want, the location you want, the size you want. They've got choices like you wouldn't believe. ParksideCabinRentals.com. Look at it today. I promise you, you'll be happy you did. All right, the University of Tennessee has sold out its season tickets for football for the second year in a row. They've had 13 players drafted the last 3 years. We just talked about the Vols possibly having the number 1 pick in next year's draft. They've won 27 games over the last 3 years, including an Orange Bowl and a Citrus Bowl. They've had a top 10 recruiting class. My question is, this is the healthiest, Jimmy, this is the healthiest Tennessee football has been since?
More than 20 years. I'm going to go with a range here. I'm going to go from
No, I want an exact day and time.
September the 7th, 1995. No.
6:45 p.m.
From 1995 Peyton Manning sophomore year to 01.
Wow.
This is the best range that they've had. That's the range. Now, it's the best since then. So since 2001, I don't think they've been as good as what they are right now with their program. I see more optimism. I see recruiting doing well. I see season tickets. So you had some pockets of success.
Yeah.
In 07, they went to an SEC championship game. But I like where they are right now better because you saw Philip Fulmer's years fading. Since then, they didn't hire a coach, in my opinion, at this level. So I'm going to go since then.
My opinion? Little majors.
Tack.
I'm going to go.
Healthiest since when? You went further back than I thought. That's cool.
I'm going to go over or just under 20 years. I'm going to say going into the 2005 season because that season obviously they face planted, but they were coming off a 10. They were coming off
That's
a 10.
why I didn't include this.
Yeah. But they were coming off a 10-win season. They were national title contenders. People thought going into that year. So I'd say going into that year,
Okay.
that's the last time. And they were, I think, back-to-back 10-win seasons before that.
Yep.
So I think that was about the right time.
My answer is the same as Ryan's going into 05. So the 05 off season, the 04 season created a lot of optimism. The program was still viewed as a national championship contender at a higher level than right now. So I'm not considering the 05 result because we don't know the result of this season either.
Yeah.
But going in, the excitement from what they did the previous year, the talent of the roster was at a high level. We know the result afterward. But going into 05, the excitement of what Tennessee football was compared to the best in the country, I think, was at a higher level than right now. But so going back close to 20 years, similar to Jimmy, same as Ryan.
I'm going to go with what Jimmy said. I think that's where they are right now as far as being the healthiest they've been since then. Obviously, they're not there yet. But I think if you look at what you've got as far as some young talent, you got to see it play. It's got to develop, et cetera, et cetera. But, yeah, I'm going to go with what Jimmy said. I think they look the best to me since that era.
Wow. I was thinking that people would say maybe that, 03, you had a down year in 05, but 03, 04, 10 wins each. 05 was a down year. 06, 07 were 9, 10. I thought it would be kind of there, the 03 to 07. But I'll give you one that'll bring everybody back down to earth. If you're talking about when it appeared to be this healthy, you could say right about mid-season 2016.
Yep.
You were on an 11-game win streak. Tennessee you basically won a season undefeated, stretched over 2 years. You'd had 2 top 10 recruiting classes. You'd won, Butch didn't lose a bowl game. So right there, going into that Texas A&M game of that season, you could make a case that was feeling pretty good. It was a high water mark. Now, behind the scenes, it was falling apart. And then on the field, starting with Jalen Hurts saying, yeah, I'm out. Then it really nosedived. Yeah. But that would be kind of a warning sign that it looks good, but looks can be deceiving. But I didn't go as far back as you guys did. I think that says you think it's in a really, really healthy place. If you're thinking it's in that caliber of 95 to 01, that's the highest it's ever been.
I think a healthy place
Yeah.
with a big upside. But,
95 to 01 is the best the program has ever been.
Yeah, and I think you potentially could maybe not hit the heights, but your projection could be here, whereas that was here. You may come under that, but I think you're looking like okay, this is the team that's going to be 8, 9, 10, wins, that kind of thing.
Well, and my projection is based on my belief that Nico Iamaleava is going to be really good.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask this. Let's say this year you win 9 games again, which I have a lot of people screaming. But I wouldn't be surprised by it. This is his first year as a starter. I would think next year, and I've always said this last year, that Nico's it's the 2025 season that I'm kind of pointing to. If you have a 9-win season next year, I don't know that I change my result here. I think you're still going to be saying just as healthy. Because 9, compared to where you've been going into this, I don't think if you're still selling out your tickets, if you're still entertaining football, you get the number 1 pick in the draft
And
or a
if
top
Nico
5
looks like
draft
he's
pick.
a really good player, yeah.
There you go.
I was tempted to say, I thought about your 2016 idea. That really did cross my mind. But I think that this is different because you have more stability. I think there's a sense of stability that wasn't there in 2016. And that 2016 team had some stars, too. So there's an argument for that. But I just think the program's overall in a better spot. And 07 crossed my mind, too. I just think after 05, things started to kind of come unraveled a little bit with Philip Fulmer.
Yeah, and that was, you get into different things.
Yeah.
Was that the program fixed, or was it just you went and got David Cutcliffe as a rental for 2 years, and then he left and it fell back apart again?
Yeah, the ground seems sturdier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right now compared to 15-16 or 06-07.
Agree with that. Okay. You've convinced me. When we come back, UT football is healthy, but what about NCAA sports in general? They don't appear healthy. However, new changes coming down the road, looming changes, they're going to fix everything. And I mean that. I can't believe the things I'm reading this week. It's like, well, that would take care of this, and we'd probably take care of that. Is it as good as it sounds? Going back. Welcome back into the Sports Source. You would have enjoyed the between segment banter. We were discussing Highlight, for those of you who remember what that is. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. They don't have to worry. We're talking sports, college sports, not Highlight here. When you think about insects and pest control, you often think about just things that are a nuisance. I got something in my house, I need to get rid of them. I want to prevent these things, ants, from getting into my house. I've got mosquitoes, I want to kill those things off. But when you're talking about termites and carpenter bees, you're talking about beasts that can actually do serious, serious damage to your home. A little prevention on the first part can save you a lot of money on the back end of this thing. Southeast Termite and Pest Control, they can help you check for and get rid of termites and carpenter bees. Give them a call this week. The Haynes family's done a tremendous job since 1971. Big part of the East Tennessee community, Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Okay, major news around college athletics this week. I'll read you some stuff right here. Kirby Smart was given a $13 million contract per year at Georgia, which tells you that, there's still plenty of money in the sports world. The UAB football team became the first Division I football program to join a players' association, getting very close to a union. More states joined the state of Tennessee's lawsuit against the NCAA. But then came word that the NCAA could be forced to pay $2.7 billion to past athletes who were not allowed to make money off NIL. Here's what ESPN had to say about that. Sources told ESPN this week that parties have proposed the NCAA's national office, rather than its individual member schools or conferences, would pay for the settlement of past damages over a period of 10 years, so $270 million a year for 10 years. The NCAA payments would be paid to former college athletes who say they were illegally prevented from making money by selling the rights to their name, image, and likeness. The settlement would come with a corresponding commitment from conferences and schools to share revenue with athletes moving forward. The settlement would establish a framework for power conferences to share revenue with their athletes in the future. Sources have told ESPN schools are anticipating a ceiling of nearly $20 million per year for athletic revenue share moving forward. That would mean taking the collectives out of it, bringing everything back inside, and then we can read a little bit more. Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports added this. Bowl season director Nick Caparelli, told at Yahoo Sports in Phoenix that he expects NIL to soon come in-house and for athletes to sign binding compensation contracts with schools that will require them to play in bowls and college football playoff games, eliminating or greatly reducing opt-outs. And you'd assume that would also cut down on the transfer portal nonsense we've been having. Now, I'm going to shut up and just leave it to Ryan. If all that comes to pass, everything fixed. Does this sound like everything's fixed to you? I mean, it slows the transfers, the opt-outs. You don't have the different collectives doing different things, different laws of the lands. Everybody's getting X. Does Does it sound like a fix, or are you still sitting there going, the NCAA will screw this up?
I mean, there's always a very real possibility the NCAA will screw something up. But I will say, if you think the NIL and transfer portal are the biggest problems facing college sports, this is a big fix for a lot of that. I think this is where things need to go because, again, you could curb transfers, you could handle the Wild West goes away, all that stuff in the NIL world. So a lot of things do get solved with this. I don't like the conference realignment and all that other stuff. This doesn't do anything to solve that, obviously, and I think it in some ways might create a bigger problem, which is the schools that don't have the money to participate in this get left out. You're talking upwards of $20 million per school. Some can't afford that.
Miami of Ohio won't have that. You're also talking about, of course, and I'm leaving it out for the purposes of this conversation, what happens with Title IX?
Right.
What happens, does softball make as much as football? Does the rowing team make as much as the basketball team? Does the women's basketball make as much as men's basketball? All that still has to be coming out. But for the most part, on this, you feel good about it or no?
Yes, I will say this, though. The warning here is this wouldn't necessarily end external deals. This would just cover a baseline deal for all athletes. $20 million wouldn't necessarily cover all of your expenditures in the future anyway on athletes. So there could be a deal where to win a bidding war for a player, you might have to find external deals on top of the $20 million or so that a school might be able to provide to all of its athletes. So
in other words, this would be $20 million from the schools, plus you'd still have collectives.
Potential.
The one thing I read said that this would be bringing collectives in-house.
Well, you would, but it wouldn't necessarily cap the total revenue for all athletes at a school at $20 million. So you still might have to go beyond it to remain competitive for some schools.
Gotcha.
I like the idea of it going in-house. I think within 3 years we will not have collectives. I also like the idea of signing a contract. If you sign an NIL deal, you don't just make yourself a free agent every year. You sign a 2 or 3 year contract, and then you have to go to a bowl game or you have to go to a playoff game, whatever. The one thing I'm concerned about, though, is you're going to go back 10 years and pay all this money. Well, why aren't you going back 20 years? Why aren't you going back 30 years?
They didn't file the lawsuit, I guess.
So the lawsuit was 10 years ago?
Yeah, the people who filed the lawsuit, I guess, are guys from
that era?
Yeah. It's kind of like the O'Bannon case that started
I thought I'd read it could go back farther, could it not?
I don't know,
Yeah.
but I don't like that part of it.
Okay. Well, I'm looking more at the does this fix the issues we're dealing with college sports today? Yay or nay?
It has to improve it. Binding agreements, which essentially don't exist. You can have players, there are players who come to agreements with their collectives, and then they go back and say, actually, I need a little bit more.
Right.
And then they renegotiate the deal that they just did. This should eliminate that. There will still be transfers, there will still be movement, that will still happen, but it will be more difficult, I have to imagine, with binding agreements with a school as opposed to with an outside source.
I think it fixes a lot of the problems that I haven't liked over the last 18 months, 2 years, or whatever. But I also think this really will hasten the fact that you're going to come up with a super elite group of teams, and a lot of people that right now consider themselves there aren't going to be in it. And I think that's what it does. I think it fixes some problems, but some of these schools are no longer going to be Division I greats, Power 5, all that.
I think you're getting that anyway, though.
Yeah, but I think this will hasten that, which maybe that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not necessarily going to be bad, but I think it does fix 75% of the problems.
On paper, it looks like an improvement. I think it may not be a fix, but it's an improvement.
Yeah.
But there's still going to be issues with it, even if they can make it happen. All right. When we come back, let's get into some of this hastening of conference changes and stuff. Should the SEC football program take a lesson from the past? We'll discuss fears and schedules next and talk about a new project that Jimmy Himes has going on. Going back on the Sports Source. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. The clock is ticking on incredible savings on G3 and Suncatcher pontoons. You've got 1 week to May 12th, next Sunday, to get $6,000 back on all in-stock inventory purchased between today and next Sunday. $6,000 in instant rebate and some of the best boats on the water. G3 Suncatcher pontoons. There's no better place to buy a boat, I'm telling you, especially this week. Madisonville Marine, Highway 411 North in Madisonville. Okay, this week our friend Jimmy Himes, sitting right there, along with Paige Dower, used to be over at WVLT, and launched a new YouTube interview show called The Rewind at a YouTube channel called Full Disclosure Productions. Check it out. The first guest for Jimmy was former SEC Commissioner Roy Kramer, and the man behind the SEC's first successful expansion and the SEC championship game. Here's a quick clip.
Alabama at the time was rated number 1 in the country. And that was one of the great discussions by our coaches, was the fact that playing this extra game would result in the fact that the Southeastern Conference would never win another national championship.
Pat Dye said that. Auburn's coach, he said, the SEC will never win another championship doing this.
Yeah, Pat said that very strongly.
And by the way,
yeah.
Alabama the first year won the national championship. But were you a little bit uneasy?
There were a lot of people, the media was big into that idea.
Yeah.
Hear that, and I'll never forget Gene Stoller. Gene says, we won 11 games and we haven't won anything. He wasn't vehement opposed, but I know this. He says, geez, we've won 11 games and haven't won a thing. He says, this doesn't make sense. And so there was, I think if you'd have taken a vote of our coaches at that time, you would not have gotten a favorable vote for the playoff.
Yeah.
Jimmy, good luck with your project, and people should go check that out on YouTube. But one thing struck me in that, because I remember it. Everyone at the time, the coaches were, as he used the word vehemently against the SEC championship game, because nobody else has to play this. We'll never win a national title with this thing. In reality, what it did was it made the SEC look stronger than anyone else, and it paved the way to the string of national championships that the SEC has won. You go back before that, people who grow up in the last 30 years are sitting there thinking the SEC's always won 25 out of 28 national titles. No, it didn't. Nope. Not pre-1992. That championship game that all the coaches feared helped them, didn't hurt them. My question to you is there a lesson there for the current batch of coaches and athletic directors who are scared witless of going from 8 games to 9 games? Does that apply, or do you look at it and say, well, John, those are two different things. It's about playoff bids now. It's teams trying to get to bowl games, so that doesn't apply. Is there a lesson to be learned, or a totally different deal?
I vehemently agree there's a lesson to be learned. And I don't see any reason why you can't go to 9. I never did like the argument about staying at 8, but you got a 12-team college football playoff. You can get into the playoff at 10-2 for sure. You may get in at 9-3 if your schedule is good enough. So I don't think the argument for staying at 8 holds much water right now. Yes, I do think it also helps the conference, and there are certain teams in the league that'll never get into it, Vanderbilt and some others. But I think that is a pretty good lesson for the SEC to learn about expanding, going to 9 conference games.
Gentlemen, thoughts?
It is. I think it's a good lesson, but I think there is going to be more pushback this time. We think there are going to be more people who feel the SEC championship game doesn't mean all that much anymore in the context of a 12 or 14 team playoff, because it's just another game to get somebody hurt or to hurt your seeding, lose a first round bye, all those things, and hurt your path to a national championship. Interesting side point here. I did think about this.
I thought that at the time too.
Right, but the first team to actually lose a shot at a national title, and maybe the only one that I can think of, was Tennessee. That didn't lose it at the expense of another team jumping into the race. So Tennessee gets to be the guinea pig for a lot of things. They were for that too.
In 01, lose to LSU. Yeah.
But I think for the most part it's not a big deal. But some people are going to push back on this because of what the playoff is, how the playoff is structured, and the fact that the SEC championship game is not a necessity now to get in there.
About back to specifically the 8-game conference schedule, moving to a 9-game conference schedule, does that lessen? We were scared of this. Does that apply to this and say we shouldn't be scared of this, we should embrace it? Or is that apples and oranges? Doesn't apply?
I think it applies. I think it's a rule almost at this point that coaches, athletic directors in a lot of cases, because they'll be tied together in the thinking, they want to make things as easy as possible, and playing 8 conference games versus 9 makes it easier. There's no question, because it gives you more control of what you're scheduling non-conference. In a 12-team playoff, Bob, I would strongly look at teams playing tougher schedules and considering either getting in or seeding. You play a tougher schedule and your record's the same, you're getting the better seed, you're getting the better chance in the playoff.
I would think to go back, and the thinking to me is almost exactly the same now going to 9 as it was going to the conference championship game. So the lesson is there, and I think it's time, hold your nose, dive in, and see how the water feels.
And the point is, the SEC is going to be fine. The SEC is the standard. The playoff's going to meet the SEC where it is. I think they're going to want the teams in there, and losing an extra game here and there is not going to cost the SEC playoff berths.
Fortune favors the bold.
Yep.
Roy Kramer and the SEC were bold 30 years ago. Fortune favors the bold. The SEC should do it again and by going from 8 games to 9 games, which the Big Ten has already done. But here's the thing. I think this is for the Kentuckys and maybe the Tennessees. I don't know the schools that are all voting no against 8. But there are schools out there that say, we've got to get to a bowl game. We've got to schedule crap teams so we can get to a bowl game.
Kentucky.
Here's the thing. Yeah, here's the thing for Mitch Barnhart and the crew up there. ESPN will pay for 2 5-7 teams to meet in the bowl game. They will.
Yeah.
And people will still watch it in December, and people will still bet on it. Just start playing 5-7 bowl games. And we all complain that, well, you shouldn't have 2 6-6 teams. They're still there. There's still 50 bowl games, and people still watch them. So rather than make everybody suffer through another round of Kent States and Chattanooga games, go play an extra game, get more people in your stands, and then just start playing 5-7 bowl games. That would take care of it, and you'd all make more money, and the conferences can own the bowls, and ESPN can get the TV rights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, when we come back, I fixed the world. That's all I ever did. I just fixed things. I'm a fixer. All right. Did previous expansion work for the SEC? Not from a business sense, mind you, but from a fan perspective. Let's discuss that next, and we'll get your opinion, as a matter of fact. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. Boy, there were storms in the area yesterday. Looking at my app earlier today, storms could be coming tomorrow. Could have storms on Tuesday. Could have storms on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Look, everybody else loves spring. I'm the one guy who doesn't like spring because I don't like wondering if my house is going to be standing at the end of the day. If you sit there in your house and your roof takes a beating, call Daniel Hood Roofing and have them come out and do a free inspection for you. What they're going to do is they're going to look up there, and if they see damage, if they see issues, if moisture is getting inside those shingles, they're going to tell you, and then they're going to get with you and make sure your insurance company pays for you to get a new roof. They want you to get a new roof, and they want your insurance company to pay. Daniel Hood Roofing. Check them out this week. All right, here's our poll question for the day. Let's put this thing up here. Has expansion made the SEC better for fans? Some of you already been online, which I appreciate. The answers are expansion to 12 did, expansion to 14 did, expansion to 16 will. No, it didn't. Those are your options. It looks like it didn't is now your leader. But go ahead, click the QR code with your smartphone there, or you can go to sportsource.tv/polls and play along there. We appreciate it. It's always fun to see these kind of things. Let's quickly put up a timeline of the SEC. All right, from 1932, a little history lesson, from 1932, and it was founded right here in downtown Knoxville, by the way. The meeting took place right here. From 1932 to 1940, it was a 13-team league. You had Georgia Tech, Sewanee, and Tulane in there. 1940, Sewanee left, Georgia Tech left in 64, Tulane left in 66. Man, what a mistake for Tulane and Georgia Tech. And then the age of expansion started in 1992, Arkansas and South Carolina. Then Missouri and Texas A&M in 2012. Texas A&M to me felt like a natural progression. That's an SEC fan base. They're crazy. Oklahoma and Texas coming next, and that I don't know when that's going to feel like it. My question, though, Bob, not from a business sense. Yes, they made money, TV, they've won championships, no question. But from a fan perspective, did expansion make the league more interesting? Do you think Arkansas and South Carolina made it more interesting, or would you still go back to 10? Would you go back to 14? Thoughts, quickly. By the way, I'll move the segment along.
I don't really think it made it more interesting. What is interesting to me is you like Texas A&M. I got into Missouri quicker because Missouri was playing Tennessee.
Yeah.
A&M was just kind of here, not here, whatever. But I'm going to go with no. If you had stayed with the original SEC schools, heck, even Sewanee, I think it would have been more interesting than you got now.
Vanderbilt would have somebody to beat. All right, so you like it better with 10. Has expansion aided the SEC?
No, I don't think so.
For
I guess volume of storylines, there's more with 14 than 12. There will be more with 16. But
it's good for media.
Yeah, A&M, I agree with you in the fact that they spend a bunch of money, they spend it recklessly, fans are crazy. So that part of it has fit in with the SEC. They haven't won at the highest level, but they continue to carry the potential, which makes them interesting to, I think, other fans too.
I don't think it's added a whole lot. It brought us a conference championship game. You couldn't have had that without 12 teams at the time, so that's the biggest contribution, I think. But as far as rivalries and things like that, Arkansas at least found a rival with LSU. To
Did they?
some extent,
Yeah.
Missouri, not really. Texas A&M a little bit with LSU. I mean, not a whole lot, but yeah. I mean, I don't think it's added a lot in terms of just indisposable games.
We'll
but
get to them in the next set, but I
Yeah.
want, in terms of fans,
Yeah.
they're here.
I don't-
SEC fans.
Yeah,
original.
I don't think a whole lot. No.
Jimmy,
I don't either. I think there have been pockets of rivalries created.
Yeah.
And one of them,
Over
I think,
short
was
periods of time.
right, like Florida, South Carolina, when Steve Spurrier was South Carolina's coach. I do think Arkansas, LSU, A&M, and LSU are two.
We'll get to that in the next segment.
But it's very limited. So my answer would be no. It has not been a big boost for fan experience.
Yeah, I don't know that SEC fans ever looked at it and said, I mean, Tennessee and South Carolina were just going to until the last couple of years. It was a good back and forth. The coaches don't seem to really be big fans of one another. But even does that rank high on your rivalry list at Tennessee?
I mean, when Tennessee and Florida started playing regularly, all of a sudden
Even that was
Florida
kinda
was
weird,
a nothing burger, and then it became the game of the year. And I think some people would even say topping Alabama as the game of the year. You had nothing close to that, I don't think.
Arkansas did give the SEC a couple of basketball national championships.
Okay, we are really stepping all over the next segment, so let's just get into the next segment where we talk about the schools that came in. All right, that's next. Come on back on the Sports Source. All right, welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. Quality security systems are innovative. They're advanced technological solutions. They protect and secure your home or office. They can be monitored and controlled from a central hub, and that hub can be right in the palm of your hand in a tablet or a smartphone. Safety Systems delivers all of that in their tremendous security systems for your home or your business. Get in touch with them this week. VFL J.J. Surlis and his team, they've been doing security systems across our part of the country here for more than 20 years, and they've done it well. I tell you this all the time. There's a reason you see that logo right there on stickers and signs in yards and in business windows all over East Tennessee. It's because they do it right. SafetySystems.com. All right. Josh, I'm not asking about business here again. We're talking about just from the other school's perspective. They're fans, if you look at it. The guys coming in here got rich, but has expansion worked for Arkansas, South Carolina, Texas A&M, and Missouri? Was it a net positive? If you asked their fans, do you think they'd say, oh my gosh, it's so much better than we were?
Yeah, we love this annual matchup with School X, the rivalry that we've developed. I would say no. I doubt any of them have heated rivalries that really have resonated. Part of it is they're not playing at the highest level. A&M's knocked on the door. Steve Spurrier took them to a high level at South Carolina for a little bit of time, but dropped back off. So they're like room temperature rivalries where, okay, South Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida can be an interesting game here and there. A&M versus LSU can be interesting, but to the level of, like on the outside, when we talk about, boy, that Florida-Georgia game or the Iron Bowl or Tennessee-Florida, what it's been, outside those schools, nobody talks about the South Carolina, Missouri, A&M games that they play like those.
Agreed. Regardless of circumstance, how many regardless of circumstance rivalries have been created for an Arkansas? I mean, again, they tried to do the golden boot thing with LSU, and maybe that has become, but I mean, it stands out to me that former athletic director Frank Broyles talked about we still don't have a real rivalry here. He said that late in life. No one that ranks with their hatred of Texas. I guess that's my question. Is there anyone in the SEC that these new schools have come in that have replaced the rivalries they had at their last place? And I don't know that they have.
I don't either, but South Carolina was an independent, and I don't really know who they had. So
Clemson.
I do think that South Carolina playing Tennessee, I think the fans of South Carolina look forward to that. I think they look forward to playing Georgia. I think they look forward to playing Florida. Other than that, I don't see. So
they had played Georgia a lot before they came into the SEC. That's probably second only to Clemson in terms of their overall rivalries, maybe North Carolina.
So I think South Carolina's fan base has benefited more than Arkansas's in that regard.
I don't think Missouri has benefited.
No.
And again, part of that's off field, but that program has gotten worse in both. Well, football just had a good year, but it's not consistent. Yeah. Basketball, which everyone thought, well, they'll come in and compete. They've gotten terrible.
Yeah.
But it hasn't helped Missouri.
Yeah, they still long for being able to play Kansas.
That's what I was going to say. We were there for the Tennessee-Missouri game this year, and their fans were chanting during a song, blank, KU, because they're thinking about Kansas all the time, and they're not playing them in football on any kind of regular basis. Yeah. So, I don't think they've replaced those rivalries at all.
No. I don't even think Arkansas at times doesn't even seem like they're in the SEC. I mean, of all the 4 teams that have gotten here before Texas and Oklahoma, I think Arkansas is the one that still just doesn't feel like, it's a big SEC school.
And initially, when the SEC added them, they had the 2 opponents from the other side. They're scheduled for it. So Tennessee got Arkansas as a permanent foe there for several years. You even had that great 98 game. Your border states, although the schools are on opposite ends, it just never felt like a rivalry to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, here's my question, though. Will Texas and Oklahoma have an easier time making rivals? And I'll preface this by saying I think Texas will. I think Texas will because Texas they have rivalries already with Texas A&M.
Everybody likes to hate
Oklahoma, who they're bringing with them. Yeah. Arkansas, they had an old rivalry with them from the Southwest Country. And they're like Notre Dame. They're kind of asses. So people hate them. They're like the Yankees.
They're a big brand.
Yeah.
People have opinions on Texas as soon as they walk in. They're walking in being really good.
Yeah.
So they're coming in to try to shake up the SEC and win an SEC title and a national title day one. That's going to matter to other fan bases.
I don't think they're a good fit for the conference, but I think fans will hate that. I think they'll have rivalries. Does everybody agree that they'll?
Yes. Yeah, and UT, that's going to be a rivalry. Yeah. And how many fans are going to do the horns down signal?
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
All the time.
Which they say is some sort of, that's off limits. You can't do that. The Texas fans act like that's some sort of offensive gesture.
Which
the
will only
Big
ramp
12
it up
would
in the
fine
SEC.
people, fine schools for doing that. What are you talking about? Everybody does the Gator chomp back at Florida.
Right.
Here's my question, though. I have a feeling Oklahoma is going to be a lot like Arkansas. I may be wrong here, but they are stuck out, kind of like Arkansas was. I can see them looking longingly back at the old days, back when it was Colorado and Nebraska, and the old way when they would be at the top of the world. Now you're on the edge, you're on the outskirts, and I don't know that they're going to be able to recruit. I worry about Oklahoma. I think Texas will fit right in, even though they're not a fit for a school. I think fan-wise they'll fit. I don't know about Oklahoma. Am I wrong?
No, I think Oklahoma, I mean, once again, I think Missouri came in and felt like a rival to me because they beat Tennessee early, and you didn't expect it, and so you wanted to get to Missouri again because we've got to beat them. I just don't see any of these other teams the way the college landscape is now. I just don't know if you're going to develop rivals like you used to.
Yeah. Oh, Rutgers UCLA is going to be hot, man.
I mean, I think there's just so many schools in the SEC that hatred that Tennessee and Florida developed in the late 80s and early 90s. I just don't think you're going to be able to do that.
The other thing about developing it is you're not playing them every year.
Right.
In a lot of cases.
I mean, once again,
you have too many teams, you can't do it. Because you only play 8 games.
Go to 9 games.
Oklahoma won't feel like an odd fit because they at least have Texas. But I think they're going to have a hard time. I think the SEC will knock them down a peg, in my opinion.
They're going to try and manufacture a rivalry with Arkansas because they're borders, but they've never really played historically. So it's a little like the Arkansas-Missouri thing. You can try and make it, but those things, they develop naturally. You can't force them. So, all right, when we come back, the Vols have a natural rival across the state. So should they be playing Memphis more in football and basketball? UT focuses on the mid-state in recruiting. Should they also look to West Tennessee for recruiting? Come on back. Welcome back in. This segment of the show brought to you by Games and Things. If you're looking to build a game room, talk to the experts at Games and Things to find what's right for you, your family, and your space. From pool tables to shuffleboard to skee ball to darts to stand-up arcade games. Man, they got it all. No one in East Tennessee can beat Games and Things when it comes to fun, because life should be fun. OurGameRoom.com to learn more. Get out and see them at the corner of Kingston Pike and Lovell Road. All right, let's remind you of the poll that we've got going on today. We want you to click and play. Has expansion made the SEC better for fans? We're going to leave that up there. Please play along. It looks like 54% of you say, it didn't. Next, 16 will. More people say 16 will fix it than said 12 did or 14. Well, nobody liked the Texas A&M Missouri editions. But I'm surprised that people are looking forward to Oklahoma, Texas. They're happier about that than they were just adding Arkansas and South Carolina. So keep, play along with us here. A Memphis writer this week, and as Brian pointed out, they do this every year on the Big Orange Caravan Stop, pointed out this week that there are plenty of Vol fans in West Tennessee who deserve to see Tennessee play in Memphis. Okay, we know I've gone back and forth on this over the years. It's like, they want to play you. Why would you play them? Now I'm like, if you're going to give me the option of Kent State or Memphis, give me Memphis. I don't like how Tennessee schedules. Give me Memphis. That's at least something interesting. Yes, you could lose on occasion. I think they've lost once to them in my lifetime in football. It can happen, but I don't think it's going to destroy your program. I would play them in football. I understand why Rick Barnes doesn't want to play Penny Hardaway after he lipped off in basketball. At the same time, it's an interesting game when they do play. Yeah. I say play them. In terms of a recruiting standpoint, there's a lot of talk about, well, we got to get to the mid-state. Tennessee's always playing in the mid-state. Neutral site games in the mid-state. Don't you want to recruit the west part of the state? I mean, is there value in recruiting, in playing in Memphis to draw recruits, Ryan, yay or nay?
There is, but I think that stuff's a little overrated in today's world. I don't think even playing in Nashville helps a ton from a recruiting standpoint.
So you say Danny White's a liar.
Well, Danny White, I think is going to, if you believe him what he says, I think he wants to play more home games as opposed to neutral site games. So I don't think he's eager to get to Nashville. He kind of talked about that Tuesday in Nashville as well. But I think there's value in getting to Memphis. There's a fan base there to serve that you want to be there every once in a while. Going to the Liberty Bowl a couple years ago would have been nice for them. But at the same time, is it so important you should do it? No, I think there's a ton of risk. You said it. They could lose to Memphis. They almost lost a couple other times in addition to that game they did lose. So I think
lost in 99.
To me, it's two separate discussions. They should play in basketball, but Memphis wants to tie football to basketball usually. So that's why it comes up together. I don't think there's much benefit for Tennessee football-wise. That's just me.
No, yeah. I disagree. I think you ought to, if you're going to schedule the way you do, then bring Memphis into it.
Oh, it's more entertaining.
I mean, that's what I want to see is more entertaining games. So yes, if you're going to go second tier, and your big game of the year out of conference is North Carolina State, okay, put Memphis on the schedule.
Final word, Josh. Do they play Memphis more or no?
Football, no. Don't really care there. Basketball, would strongly encourage home and home basketball. You play so many games, programs more credible. I get the Rick Barnes, Penny Hardaway, but big picture, stepping away from it, would love to see Tennessee and Memphis playing basketball.
You're just a Kent State booster.
The bad blood makes it even better. They should play every year in basketball.
Oh, I agree with that part.
I think they should play them both too.
Yeah, if you're going to play them one, play them both. I don't know if you play them every year, but
right.
Yeah. Mixing them through in a decade.
You didn't play them
you can do
every
a
year
2-for-1 in football.
So, yeah,
you can do something like that.
Just sprinkle them in.
All right. When we come back, Vol fans support spring sports. There's no question they're buying up tickets. But will they ever catch up to the revenue sports in terms of overall interest? Plus, a little Kentucky Derby fun. We'll have that too. Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Pipe Wrench. Warm weather means it's time to start thinking about your HVAC system. Don't get caught needing new AC in a heat wave. That would, what they say, suck. So, call Pipe Wrench this week and ask about all their specials. And as always, be sure to use these folks for all your plumbing needs as well. I have, and let me tell you, I walked away very impressed. PipeWrench.com, they are always top of the charts in all of these Knoxville polls, whether it's drain cleaning, plumbing, heating, or cooling. They do it all. PipeWrench.com to learn more. Great, great company. All right, let's see the results of the poll. 56% of you wound up saying that expansion didn't really mean much for the fans in the SEC. Didn't help. 24% say that 16 will. Oklahoma and Texas are going to fix that. 2% say that, 14 made a big difference. 18% said 12 did. And I'm guessing anybody under 30, you guys are over 30, but especially under 30, they wouldn't even remember Arkansas and South Carolina. But people under 40 would barely remember it. If you're 40, and Ryan and Josh just not quite there yet, but you don't really remember a pre-South Carolina-Arkansas SEC.
No, not really.
Okay. Because you're just wee lads. All right. Jimmy, I got a question for you, and then we're going to have a little fun. Spring sports doing well. Softball just won the SEC. Baseball just whipped Florida yesterday, and they're cruising. Both these teams, perennial now at this point, perennial contenders for the College World Series. People are throwing money to get in there and watch them live. They get good ratings when they're on television. People always ask me, why don't you cover them more on here? And we have covered them in the recent weeks. Ratings drop when you do. Now, that's no knock on the sport. That's simply more people talk about football, basketball, whether it's this. Other people may not tell you this, but that's the same on websites, radio stations. That's the truth everywhere. We only have 90 minutes here instead of 15, 20 hours, so we squeeze it down. But the question is, are there any places in the SEC, specifically LSU, you've lived in Louisiana, you got family in Louisiana, are there any places in the SEC where a spring sport is of interest like the two revenue sports in the SEC, football and men's basketball? I would guess LSU, Mississippi State might be the only two. Is that the case at LSU?
At LSU, I actually covered a game at LSU in baseball, and I counted the crowd. There were 98 people there. I thought, this will never work at LSU. Then they hired Skip Bertman. He won 5 national championships in 10 years. They built a new
Much
stadium.
harder to count the number.
Yeah.
21,002.
Yeah, exactly. So in baseball, LSU makes money, and I didn't see that coming, the popularity. I do think when LSU had some down years in basketball and in women's basketball, that baseball was actually more popular at LSU. But I can't speak to Mississippi State, but at LSU, the way they built that program and how crazy they were about it, I thought LSU actually exceeded the interest in basketball.
That's interesting. I think it's probably going to take, it's a championship level program.
Yes.
They've won College World Series. I think it may take that to get to that level at any of these other schools. And some of them have hit it. It's still not like South Carolina, for example. It didn't hold. All right. I do want to have a little fun here. Kentucky Derby was yesterday. I threw this out to Bob. I said, I was thinking about doing this, but it won't be funny. And then in between segments, everybody started throwing out funny answers. So I'm like, all right, let's jump it back in here. If you owned a horse in the Kentucky Derby and had to name it something that ties to Tennessee football, what would you name it? And I was you could go, well, yours.
Working like heck.
Working like heck. You could go with the Majors thing. Attack would be a horse. But we had some better. I also said another horse could be groomers. that would be one that worked.
Trigger warning. I said brick by brick.
Brick by brick on the outside. That's good. Yeah, brick by brick.
Champion of life.
Champion of life. 5-star heart.
5-star heart. That would be the obvious other one.
You got one?
A good thing the trigger warning came because now we're just firing away. I would say, where's Rommel?
Rommel.
That's good. That's a good one.
Bamboo shoots.
Bamboo, yeah.
Yeah, bamboo shoots. I was thinking you could go, this isn't that funny, but Vol fans of a certain age would remember if you had 2 horses, like Bob Baffert, you had 2 of them, pay these prices and please pay no more. That would be something. So, have we run through them?
Also under the trigger warning category, Shiano Sunday.
Ooh, that's a great horse name.
I love it.
That may be that looks like a real horse name.
And also, just for fun, Burning Mattress.
Burning mattress. That's good. Tripped on a helmet.
Yeah,
Tripped on
that's a
helmet.
good one.
Yeah.
How to take a shower?
Shower discipline.
Shower discipline, yeah. Oh, and you could do, what were some of those?
See, I thought of one from baseball. Daddy Hat.
Oh,
Yeah.
Remember the Daddy Hats?
Daddy
Which I
hat.
absolutely
Well,
hated.
you're not a showboat guy.
No.
Is there any from basketball? Ernie and Bernie.
Well, you'd have
That'd be
to
a
have
good
2
name for
horses again.
Yeah. Or you could just have one named Ernie and Bernie.
Yeah, money's probably too simple. It's
Money.
it's a term, of course, with what Bert's done. But give
Just
the
name it
ball.
Uros Plavsic.
Yeah, take all of the transfers from this cycle with the all-name team they've done and just make it the
Give
horses.
him
Yeah, that would be
6.
tough for Milicic, Akpara, Dubar.
That's right. Yeah.
Also, even though we found out later that the myth was not necessarily true, McDonald's bags.
That's true. Yeah, McDonald's.
It ended up being Chick-fil-A bags,
How
right?
about checkerboard?
Yeah.
Checkerboard.
You can tell the era of football at Tennessee
Yes.
that Ryan is covered by the way.
Yes, with all the.
with the name suggestion.
Are there any others that would be? These are pretty good.
I think give the ball to Jamal would be a good one from half your time.
Yeah,
Fans love
99,
the expression, give the ball
or
to Jamal.
97, yeah. Started to say 99, 97. 99, they gave the ball to Jamal on that 4th down. Let's see.
Opportunity is nowhere was
that's a good one.
Dooley
That's
the
a
image
very good
thing,
one.
right?
because
on
the
doors.
announcer would be confused. Is it nowhere or now here? Which
Yeah.
was the whole point from Derek Dooley.
Call if you want to come.
Yeah, that's right.
Derek Dooley with the
Tell
VFLs.
media,
Yeah.
Boy, Derek Dooley
Opportunity.
was really the guy who spawned a lot of these.
Was it opportunity is nowhere or just opportunity no?
Well, the doors would open and it would show now,
Now
here, I
here,
believe.
yeah.
But
But did it
if
have
you
the
looked at it,
is?
it showed nowhere.
Did
so.
it just say opportunity now here, or was it opportunity
It was
is now?
nowhere was
Opportunity
spread
is.
across
Yeah.
the doors, and so the door was divided between
No,
the
no,
W.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember if there was an is.
There
in
was.
there.
Yeah,
So
there
opportunity is now here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it looked like opportunity is now
nowhere,
is
yes.
nowhere. Yeah.
What do
that's-
you see?
I think you win. I think that's it.
Yeah.
We'll see you right back here next Sunday for the Sports Source. Thank you very much.